Welcome. My name is George Pearson and I run the How To Gurus channel here on YouTube. Most of the videos in my channel are short demonstrations of the different tools and techniques you'll find in various software programs. Right now I have several hundred of these quick videos available on YouTube. This video though is different. This is part of a new series of longer demonstrations that I'm doing to show you how to complete complex projects from start to finish using a variety of techniques and tools. All of the images I use in these projects are in the public domain, and I've included a link to the pictures in the video description in case you want to work along using the same images. Okay, let's move on to the project. In this special Photoshop Elements project, we're going to be taking a look at how you can change hair color. We'll be looking at a few different variations here, a few different versions. Right now we're starting with a reddish hair color, as you can see, and we're then going to be changing this into, again, a few different versions here. Now we'll first be making a brown hair color. I'm going to save this file. Just do a little file save, and let's save this. I'm just going to put a dash brown on this. Here we are, choose save. Okay, so there's our first file. Now to do this we need to mask out just the hair. I want to be just changing the color of the hair and nothing else in here. If I just remove red, we'll be changing the color of the face, the lips, all that kind of stuff. So let's make a selection on this. But before I do that, as I always like to do, I'll make a copy of my background layer. There we go. Hide that background layer. That just gives me a protection layer. Let's now make a mask for our hair. We'll do it with a selection. I'll grab the lasso tool, just a standard lasso tool, and I'll just do just kind of a loose lasso around the hair here. We're going to come back in and fix this in just a moment. So just a little bit of a loose lasso like that. That's fine. Pull it across the top to close that out. Let's now modify this selection. Go up to the select menu and refine edge. Here it is. Do a smart radius. I'm going to set this just a little bit up, maybe 2.5, 2.3 in here someplace, just a small selection. See our little selection brush in there, and I'm going to overlap the edge of the hair, but keep the crosshairs out in my masked area, out in the pink area here. And then Photoshop Elements is going to go through and do a real nice job of cleaning up that edge for me. Now in here I want to just kind of carefully pull it into the hairline, and this will give me a slight gradient in there so that the hair will actually fade into that edge. It's a real cool little tool. And just kind of carefully pull it up into the edges like that. Alright, there we go. We have now cleaned that up. I think we're pretty good. Choose OK. That then sets in that mask. Now I could, of course, come down and also grab that little bit of hair right down here, but that's already kind of a brown. We're not really going to be noticing that with this, so we're okay. Now, anything that we do is going to be applied just to that hair section. It's not going to be applied to the face. So let's start off by making an adjustment layer in here. Go up to Layer and New Adjustment Layer. We'll be using the Hue and Saturation control. There it is. Notice there's our mask. The black hides everything and the white shows, and it's hard to see here, but there is a very subtle gradient along that edge. Now what we want is a little less red, a little less saturation, so I'll put a little saturation down just a little bit, and our red is obviously right over there on our control, so I want to go a little bit away from the red, not too far where it's going to be going green, and bring our lightness down a little bit. There's a little saturation back in again. And there we go. It doesn't take much. It's a real small shift to go from that red over to a brown. And I think that's looking pretty good. You can go, of course, to a darker brown if you want to, or a lighter brown, so you have the options in there. But I want just kind of a mid-tone a mid-tone brown. If you go too dark, you begin to lose your highlights. We'll be talking about how to bring highlights back in again when we do the black hair effect. I'll show you how to increase your highlights. But I think for this look, that's pretty good. Okay, we can now see how that looks. Actually, I'm going to bring up the original file. So here's our brown hair file. Let's just go ahead and save that. And let's bring up the previous one. And see if I can enlarge that to fit. I'll just zoom in a little bit here. Okay, you can see now how much redder the red hair color was and how much browner this is. I could go a little bit darker on this, probably make it even more of a separation, but what we were really aiming at was just to remove that red tint out of there. I guess just minimize that. If you want to go back in and adjust, just come over here, double click on the adjustment icon, and you then can come in and tweak things a little more until you get just the look that you want. So there we go. There is our brown hair color. That's pretty straightforward. Nothing really too much about that, just a careful selection, as you can see here, a careful mask, and then using the adjustment layers to give you, or to remove the red tint. Alright, let's save that one. Now I'm going to do a save as on this. We're going to be doing black next. So I'll do File, Save As, and I'll just rename this one black. There we go. The reason I did that is so that we don't have to go back and redo the mask that we did up here. Now, on the black layer, we're actually going to be using the hue saturation again. So we're still using the same hue and saturation. So everything at this point stays the same. What we're doing, though, is we're going to remove the saturation. This just takes out all of the color out of the hair. And already there's our black. If I pull the lightness up, we can go up to a gray, and even up in white. It gets kind of strange up here. Notice we begin to lose our blacks in there. It's kind of weird. Go too dark, it begins looking like a wig. But just a little bit of darkening on that. There we go. We take the saturation out, that gets rid of all of your color. Go a little bit darker on that. That gets you into those black areas. So that part is basically the same as our last one, just a little further tweaks to get to that black range. Now, though, we want to make this just a little bit more interesting. We want to bring in some highlights back into the hair. We don't have any highlights now. We kind of lost our highlights, as you can see. We can bring those back in. Let me just close that down. So let's see how we can bring in some highlights. So we can do that with another layer. We're going to actually be blending in another layer in here. So I'm going to come down right there. Let's do a new layer. Here we go. I'm going to grab my paintbrush, and let's see what our size. The size is too small, so let's just move this over here for a moment, and let's bring that brush size up. That looks pretty good. Let's bring up the color swatches and switch over here to a white color, just like that. So now I have white in this other layer. I'm just going to come in here and paint a little bit. It's a little bit too thin. Let me see what our opacity is. Let's bring the opacity all the way up. There we go. I'm just going to paint some white in here over where I want to have some highlights shown. Just kind of around the edges mostly. Just a little bit in there. It looks kind of weird at this point. I admit that. Let's go now up here to our blending modes. We're going to blend this down. If I click on our blending modes, and I'll just come down on these things, you can see how the blending mode makes that appear in different ways. If I use my wheel on my mouse, I can actually roll down through these. And we'll just keep on going. Notice right there we have overlay, and we're actually seeing some highlights now. Let's just keep on going so you can see everything else. There's pin light, hard mix, difference, exclusion, hue, saturation, color, luminosity. So all kinds of fun things in here. Let's just go back up here to the soft light. So here's our soft light, and that's what we want. It's kind of blending it in. There's your overlay, actually a little bit better with the overlay. Blends it in. I can see some spots that I don't really like too much in here. So I'm going to take my eraser, and we're going to simply erase out the parts that we don't want. Let's come back and bring my size up. That's pretty good. Make sure you're on that layer 1. That's the layer that has the coloration. So I'll come in here and I'm just going to erase out some of those that I don't like, just kind of a subtle erasing in. And I'll leave them mostly around the outside edge. So we have some highlight happening around the outside edge. Now I was mentioning that if you go too dark on the brown, you may want to bring back in some highlights on the brown. Use the exact same trick as we did here. Just make a new layer, paint that layer with white where you want to have your highlights showing, and then use the overlay blending mode to blend those highlights back onto the hair. And you can go back and forth on this to get just the effect that you want, but we'll just stay with it kind of rimming the hair like that. So there it is. There is taking this hair to black, and as you can see, it's really pretty straightforward. Again, we're mostly using our hue saturation to remove the color and darken it down a little bit, and then just a little bit of a special layer here to bring in some highlights. Okay, that's our second one, fairly straightforward as you can see. Let's move on to the hard one now, and that's the blonde. There's a special trick to getting the blonde working just right. We're going to be using blending modes again. You'll see how that works. Okay, so I'm going to save this one. This is our black hair file. Save. We can close that. Actually, I'm going to just do a save. Let's just go ahead and do a file. Save as. I'll call this one blonde. There we go. Only reason for that save as is that I want to be able to use that same mask up here. Let's just take this and we'll throw away that layer. If you hold the Alt key down, notice how you can actually grab that mask and pull it onto a different layer, just like that. If I have a new layer up here, I can take this and actually pull the mask onto that new layer. Or, notice how it's selected in here, I can delete that mask off of that layer. So it's all looking pretty good. Now the hue saturation at this point is working the whole picture, of course. So let's just delete that. I don't want that any longer as well. There we go. So what we've done is I've taken the mask from our hue saturation layer and moved it onto a blank layer. That just gives me, it just saves that. And we can then pull this mask onto or copy it onto any other layer that we want to be working with. So this is kind of just a protection here, saving that mask for future use. So I don't have to go back in and remask the hair again. For the blonde hair look, we're going to do one additional little trick here. We'll still be using the hue and saturation, and we'll still be using our layer mask, but this time we're going to be using our main image and our original image as well. We'll start off by going up here to our layer mask. Make sure you click on the mask. Make sure that you also see the little light blue outline that lets you know that this has been selected. Hold down the Alt key and drag that down onto our copy of the background, just like that. If I hide the original, you can see what we have now is just the hair based upon that selection. We're now going to blend this into this, blending the same picture back into itself, which is an interesting thing to do, but you'll see what happens here using our blending modes. Come down to screen right there, and we're going to actually screen that, and you'll see when we do that, all of a sudden it lightens up that whole image. You can see there's the original, and there it is, just taking the hair and the layer mask and then screening the hair right back onto itself. It does a big part of the lightening job for us. right there. Now all we need to do is to adjust the color and the values a little bit, and we'll do that with an adjustment layer in here. So let's go ahead and pull this down, layer, new adjustment layer, hue saturation again. And now a little bit of adjustments. Let's bring our hue over up. Before I even do that, forgot we have to, of course, bring our layer mask down. So once again, go up here, click on the layer mask, hold the Alt key down, and pull that layer mask in. There we go. Now I can do that. Just make sure we're working just on the hair and nothing else. So as you can see now, we can come in here, we can change the hair color to anything we want. So we have our hair color adjustment, and what I wanted to do is come a little bit over here, get into kind of a yellowy tone. Don't go too far because you get into green. So just a little bit of yellow. Looks like right around in here is okay. I may adjust that a bit later. Let's lighten that up. Bring our saturation down just a little bit maybe. And I think we're getting pretty close to the right look here. There we go. So that's pretty good. That's just about there. Now there's a little bit of this hard edge showing. I'll show you how to fix that in just a second. But since we're right here, click on Colorize. Notice how we can come in here and give it a different kind of color effect as well. So you have, you know, another option in here if you want to use that Colorize. What that does is it takes out some of the different values in there. And gives you a little different effect. And let's see if we can get close this way. That's beginning to get just about there. And you can see it's a bit of a careful job here, kind of balancing these out to get just the right effect. And I think that hair now is just about there. That looks pretty good. So we colorized it this time. Now the last thing we need to do is need to fix this edge. It's kind of, you know, brightness along that edge doesn't look really that authentic. We can take care of that. Let's just close this down. That's simply the layer mask over here needs to be adjusted a little bit. We need to make that a little bit smaller on that layer mask. So we're going to use black again. We're painting in black and hiding more of the layer mask. So grab your paintbrush. You'll want to have a soft brush. I already have one down here. Soft brush with a fairly large size. You can see there's the size I'm using. So soft brush, large size. And then make sure that you're on black. Go up here to Window, Color Swatches, click into black. So you're painting with black. And we'll be working on this layer mask. And I'm just going to come in here just a little bit on the edge. So I'm actually taking away some of that blondness just along the very edge here. I went a little too far on that. Let me back up a couple of steps. Here we go. Just a little touch. That gets rid of that kind of a halo effect that we had in there. But there we go. There's the blonde hair effect. And again, the trick on this to make this work is this taking the hair, again using the layer mask, taking the hair and blending it back upon itself using that screen mode. And that kind of pushes you in the right direction. But there we go. There is how to do your blonde hair. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. Just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series, along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this training video.